Welcome to the Fivefold Food Podcast, hosted by Dr. Robert F. Dial, where ministers receive the spiritual nourishment they need to succeed. The Word of God declares, and He gave some apostles, and some prophets, and some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ. Prepare to receive revelation, wisdom, and insight to empower your ministry for victory. Now, let's eat.
Well, praise the Lord. God bless each and every one of you. Welcome to another edition of the Fivefold Food Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Robert F. Dow, and I'm so delighted that you're here for another podcast. No matter whether you are watching this on YouTube, Facebook, or any other social media platform, on Spotify, listen on Spotify, iTunes, whatever you get your podcast, I want to ask that you like and subscribe so that you can get our latest podcast edition. Also, be sure with another ministry leader, especially those fivefold ministry leaders, share this podcast with them. We believe it will be a blessing to them. Also, if you are on iTunes or Spotify, we pray that you will give us a review. We'll appreciate a 5-star review. It'll help get this podcast to other ministry leaders as well. Also, if you look in the show notes, you can find other resources that'll be a blessing to you in your fivefold ministry. Part of this podcast today is brought to you by the New Life Bible College and Seminary, where they help ministers grow and learn from discipleship programs to doctoral degree. If you want to grow further in the things of God and have some credentials to back up all of your years of learning, be sure you look in the show notes, hit the link, and you can find more about our Bible school and college. Well, we're so glad that you're here today. I want to get started right to today's podcast. Again, today I am joined by, I won't say my partner in crime, but my partner in conversation. Dr. C.P. How are we doing today, man of God?
Praise God. I'm great. How you doing, sir? I'm great. All is well here. Nice weather here in the state of Florida, man. Everything looking good.
Man, you ain't sitting there new about that, so don't brag about that. It don't matter whether they listen to this podcast in June, July, or December. It's all going to be the same there. So we're thankful for that. I'm excited today. I'm excited. I always look forward to these podcasts as we cook up this meal. We don't know what God is going to say or God's going to do. So we're going to ask you all, pull up a chair as we have fivefold food and eat some things that are on the table. Let's get into today's podcast. Now, last podcast together, Pastor C, we've been dealing with the subject of going from caterpillar to butterfly leadership, going from those leaders that crawl to those leaders that fly. And this podcast series was inspired by an awesome leadership teaching that you had conducted. And God put in my heart, man, we need to do a podcast on this. So we so appreciate you birthing out that message on the butterfly leader. And so you shared in that what we're going to do in order to go from a caterpillar to a butterfly leader, you got to get wings. That's the transformation that the caterpillar gets. And so we've been dealing with what that wing is, the W with the wisdom, the I, it deals with being an inspiring leader. The N, we talk about you got to navigate with others in mind. If you missed those podcasts, be sure you go back and hear them. Boy, they'll bless you, or watch them there on the YouTube channel. And that brings us to the G in our podcast today, Pastor Cornelius. And the G in the getting those leadership wings is give grace generously. This is what you said. We have to give grace generously. And so let's frame this out before we build it. You know, before they build the house, they like to frame it. And I want to put this in the frame. I would say, as we just frame it out, I'm excited about today's podcast, Pastor C, because grace has been a subject widely preached about in terms of salvation. Normally, when we hear about the term grace, it's in salvation, and sometimes it could be somewhat controversial for some. meaning that you want to be sure how you deal with grace so you don't give people, quote unquote, some say a license to sin. And, we're not getting into that aspect. But normally when we hear grace, it's in terms of salvation. And I'm so excited about today's podcast because rarely have we heard the subject of grace dealt with from a leadership perspective, not a salvation perspective, but a leadership perspective. And I believe, Pastor C, because we have not dealt with it from a leadership perspective, then I believe grace in a leadership perspective have been misapplied, meaning that grace has not been applied properly, walked in properly, and I believe it results in leadership imbalance. Well, leaders are imbalanced in one way where they end up what I call a backwards trending ministry. The ministry go backwards because they're out of balance with grace. Instead of people growing forward because they didn't apply grace the proper way, it's a backwards trending leadership in an organization. But then also on the other extreme, if we don't apply it, we're not balanced with grace and not going backwards, Pastor C, people end up battered, beat up, and bruised.
Whoa.
And they stall out in the mission. Why? Because grace was out of balance on the other side. And so I think we got to look at grace from a leadership perspective. So I'm so excited. I'm glad that you brought this to the table. We're going to have those flourishing ministry. I think we got to have a balanced approach to grace, and we got to be able to just talk about it from a leadership perspective. When you think about this in a holistic way or framing it and of the importance of this, what comes to your mind as we get ready to take off today in this discussion?
I think first of all, we have to understand how grace to me fit here is it means to lead. Further, when we talk about grace with leadership, it means to lead with patience, with mercy, and understanding the same way the Lord shows us. That, in other words, the same mercy, the same patience, and understanding that God shows us. That's what we should do. Now it's not easy, right? It's not easy, but and who we show it to, especially the people who have fallen short in their task. As you're leading them, they have fallen short in their task. So what we're saying in this, and what I was, the concept, the principle I was trying to show is that the same way God shows us understanding, patience, and mercy, when we fall short, when you're leading people, they fall short of the task and different things, we should be doing the exact same thing. Okay. Now, what grace, I guess what I would say, what grace do, grace says, I see in leadership, I see your potential, even when you miss the mark. That's what grace is. I see your potential, even when you miss the mark. Now, let's make it clear. We'll probably talk about this further down the line, but now grace doesn't mean overlooking wrong. It means that you lead people towards the right way. You don't overlook the wrong, but you lead them the right way with love, with humility, and with the attitude of want to restore them.
That's good.
So that's how I define that grace.
Good. I like that. I think if we're going to build it out, you want to start with a good foundation, framing it. And I think it starts with a good working definition of grace. I love that. I like to take notes in this time. You said grace is, I see your potential even when you miss the mark. So that's what grace is. We can see it, even seeing that, the potential in the person. And then also, as you said, looking at the same grace that God had towards us in our salvation and our walk with him, modeling that out as leaders. That's good. I think about too, when we think about what grace is, I think grace is, I look at it as like a bridge. Grace in terms of leadership is the bridge between accountability and redemption. Because see, I think that's how we get out of balance in the extremes. When grace is not balanced properly, it happens because it's all about, we want to hold people accountable. It's that, like you said about Rome, it's you got to be held, because we know as leaders, we got to hold people accountable. And not all leaders, but some leaders are type A personalities. They're more aggressive in their personality. Even some that might not be aggressive in their personality, they're goal oriented. Like you said last time, they're task driven. And so if they're a leader, whether of a church, a reformation, apostle, bishop, outreach, whatever realm they lead, praise and worship, whether we're in the parking lot, as a leader, that makes them effective is that to a degree, they have a level of vision. And so they have their vision oriented and focused people. And so since they're like that, what happens is they know in order to get whatever task that they're done, people have to be held accountable. And when you get out of balance in that, you on one side of the bridge, so it's accountability, but then the other side, people need to be redeemed. No man left behind.
Oh, I like that.
We got to go back. We can't. It's going back for the leaving the 99. But how we balance that, the balance of it, the tension between accountability and no one left behind in the 99, that bridge is grace. And I believe it's grace with wisdom that we talked about as well. It takes wisdom of grace to bridge that gap. I think a lot of times, Pastor C, since you deal with definition of grace, so we can have a good working definition of grace in terms of a leadership perspective. So I think that's why this is so important as we're going to lead, because this is part of your wing. You ain't flying nowhere if you don't get this grace wing.
That's right. That's
if
good.
you don't give grace general, you're not going to fly. You're not going to fly long, or you're going to fly wrong because you're going to fly in circles.
Right.
And you'll continue to visit things and patterns in your life. And you're flying in circles. Maybe you got the other things going on. You got some wisdom, you inspiring, but you'll find yourself in patterns, in cycles, maybe because you haven't really got this grace thing done. And so I think when we talk about definition, sometimes we can find out what things are not. Grace is not weakness. Just grace. Sometimes I think what happens too, Pastor C, when we think about grace, we may not have used the term grace in terms of when we're talking about dealing with people and circumstances. I think we might deal with it with accountability, but you got to factor grace in. Or sometimes people say we're just having mercy, we're being grace, or love. We're showing love. It's that same thing. I think it's that same thing of grace. So it's not weakness, but it's wisdom applied with kindness. See, it's wisdom applied with kindness, not weakness. Grace is giving people room to grow without giving up on the standards. I'm not giving up on standards.
I like that.
Still giving them room to grow. And so I think grace requires balance between conviction, compassion, correction with care. That's grace, that we got a conviction, we got to have compassion, but it's correction. So it's all of those things working together that we got to correct. And some say, amen, we got to correct, but then we got to have care. I think, and some may not say care, but they might say love. We got to show people love. People need love. People hurt. But then other people need correcting. There's a standard. And I think grace, as we filter through this, I hope it'll help the ministers and pastors be able to fly better, because now they realize you got to give grace generously and know how to walk in it and not out of balance, not from a salvation preaching perspective, but from a leadership perspective. What are you hearing, man of God?
So what I'm hearing in that, I like what you were saying about the grace and the caring. So I'm going to say the correcting and the caring. So you're saying that we correct, but we don't crush.
Whoa.
That's what grace is. I correct them, but I don't crush them. And that's what I see. So what we do is that's building them without breaking them. See, so if I'm going to have to correct, is there. That's that balance. I'm gonna have to do some correction, but I'm correcting you without crushing you, and I'm building you without breaking you. See, so as a leader, because that leader job is to build, but I don't want to break you. It's my job still as a leader to correct you, but I ain't trying to crush you. So then I think of those two T's down. So now the correcting is based upon the truth. This is the truth. But the other T with this thing is tenderness. A leader got to know how to deal in the truth and be tender. Both of them go hand in hand together. That's that balance. To me, that's grace. Now, when leaders don't lead with that, and let's say leader tends to be very lenient, instead of correcting, they say grace, and you kind of lenient, very lenient on stuff. I think that caused people to drift away. They end up drifting away from you because you're so lenient. But then at the same time, if you one that's always crushing or very hasty in something, that causes people to shut down. Because you come at them in that way, they begin to they shut down. So what I need then is that balance. What's that balance? I need that truth and that tenderness. I need that correction without crushing. I need the build without breaking.
I love it, man. You cooking, man. What you cooking with? I hope it's some healthy olive oil. Don't use that old Crisco, man. Don't cook with Crisco, man. You use it 2 or 3 times. Don't cook with that. It tastes like it tastes like fish.
You got it.
You cooking, man. I love it. So we're seeing now what grace is, that we do need to correct. That's why I said we got to deal with this. Maris said, break this word down, break grace down from a leadership, because people get out of balance. And when you said that crushing versus correcting, that's what I'm talking about. People get battered and bruised.
Yeah, that's right.
They never got taught. They was trying to correct, Pastor C.
I jotted it down. Yeah.
Their heart was to correct, like you said, but they crushed, and people end up battered and bruised. Why? Because they didn't do it with grace. Then, as you talked about, ministries, it comes stagnant and stale, whatever. Why? It's because that's the backwards trending, because they didn't have that balance. I love that. And so how we do it, you got to balance truth with tenderness. And I believe, guys, if we kind of walk this down, God's going to give us some wisdom and insight, because faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. I believe is going to wake up in these leaders how they can navigate that. And look at why this really matters then, Pastor C. We look at why this matters. I believe because grace and leadership, what it does, it creates a culture, as you were saying, where people can recover, they can rebuild and rise again. Within your church, your auxiliary, your ministry, whenever level you're dealing with people, inevitably, they're going to be people that make mistakes. They're going to fall short of the standards, like we fall short of God's glory on the spiritual side. They're going to come short of your standards, of the expectations, of what you have set, and what you have agreed upon, and what they agreed upon. And if we don't have this working in our framework from the beginning, then what we'll do, we'll end up crushing people not knowing it. And so you got to realize grace creates that culture so people can recover, rebuild, and rise again. A lack of grace, it'll create the frustration and stagnation. Leaders will get frustrated and they'll give up on people because people have met expectation. Then people will stop moving because they feel condemned. That's why a lot of leaders say, go on, get out the way. I'll do it myself. I wish I had better people. I'd rather just do it by myself. Go. And you'll think that you have a Gideon mentality, but it's not a Gideon mentality. What you're doing, you're running people away because you didn't have grace to see them through it. And so I think that happens, and we get rigid. We get legalistic with the law, with our policies, with our standards. We need them, but we got to operate in it from a place of grace, not law. Like when it comes to our salvation, there's God wants us to be holy and live holy, and there's still standards, but we apply it not from a law standpoint, but from a grace perspective. Not that I have to, no, I get to, and I'm empowered to do it.
That's good.
It's a grace, not a law. And that's how we have to have with our standards, is from that standpoint. And so I like to put it this way, and I don't know if I heard you say it, but it kind of rose within me, Pastor C. So let me know, did you say it? But it's having high standards but soft heart.
Yes.
Did you mention that?
Yes.
I thought that was ringing in me when I was thinking about that. It brought that back up. It's having a high standard but a soft heart.
Right.
But wrapped in accountability. That's grace. High standard, soft heart, wrapped in accountability, because people will make mistakes. They will make mistakes. So I think this is why this matters, because we don't want a backwards ministry where we're out of balance, like you said, and anything goes. There's no standard. There's no movement. But then we don't want to be on the other side where people are battered and bruised. And sometimes you don't find out till it's too late, until they jumped off the ship. And so I think we need to have a balance in this. So let's look at this. Go ahead. You had a comment, Pastor C?
Yeah, I think when you says why does it matter or why it's essential, I think it makes you also a leader. I think grace keeps a leader steady. It keeps you steady. And what I mean without it, what you just brought up, see, without grace, are you recognizing the need of it, or without you giving it, you do become, like you said, you become frustrated. So without grace, frustration builds. And I think it goes from frustration to burnout. All of a sudden, burnouts, you find yourself burning out, sets in, because you get the mentality of what you said, just move out of the way, I do it myself. The frustration leads to the burnout. So now you say, I got this. You ain't got to worry about it. I got it. And then after that, I think people become displaced. People that should be in a certain place become displaced because of the way you handled them, because you didn't use grace. You're not steady, because you're not steady, and you don't have grace. You don't got frustrated with people because you don't recognize that when we walk in grace, we recognize that people are there for growth. We're there to grow people. Grace helps us to recognize that people are in the growing stage. That means it's part of this grace shows it's a process. People are in the process. Grace helps you to recognize the process and recognize the key is they got to grow. But we already expecting people to be a certain way, so we don't show them any grace. And because we don't show any grace, once again, I repeat myself, frustration come in on you. You're not steady, you get frustration, and then burnout. I feel like burnout set in, and now people become displaced. I think all of that take place is because of that. So what, in a nutshell, I think grace gives people room to grow. I really do. I think that's what grace do. It gives room for growth. And that's what sustains a team. And I think that's how a team stay and last longer, because of grace. I do. I think that's what keeps us to deal through the long haul is because of grace, because I recognize people can grow.
Man, I love it. I love it. I think we see this burnout in the life of Moses. Why we have to have a leadership grace.
Boy.
Because he didn't have a leadership grace, he came to a place of frustration.
Yes, he did with the people. Yep.
And see, what happens is if you just operate in patience, your patience will run out. I'm run out of because what happens is you get to a point, and I've been there, where you feel like I've been patient, I've been understanding, but patience and understanding has its limit. But grace is sufficient. He didn't say God. It wasn't by patience and understanding where we saved. It was grace.
Man,
it's crazy. It's sufficient. It's enough. So if you just try to be a good leader and be patient and understanding, that'll only take you so far. Some have more than others, but when it run out, that's when you bring down the quote unquote hammer. That's when you bring down the law. Why? Because I've been patient long enough. I've dealt with this long enough. And now it's not that you don't deal with it, but it's how it's dealing with it with grace. And that's what happened with Moses. He ended up at that point, and that's why he struck the rock. And so he missed out. Woo, my God. See, you can disqualify yourself if you don't operate. That's why we got to be clothed with grace, because you're going to have stiff-necked, rebellious people that not going to keep their word, that's not going to live up to the full potential. And in order to lead and whatever level you're leading in order for you to sustain, God said, my grace is sufficient. If not, your auxiliary, your church, whatever the thing that God birthed you, it'll be a thorn in your flesh. And the reason it's thorn in your flesh, because you got to deal with people. And that's why we got to get this grace thing. And I think another thing that comes to mind, I was hearing you deal with this, Pastor C, where people say, go on, I got it, I'll do it. That's a leader, because now you're not functioning with synergy. You're trying to do it all yourself or with one or two people that you can count on. You got your little, and now you'll wear them out because you didn't have grace for everybody else. You'll wear your inner circle out because you ran away to other people because you didn't have grace for them because they didn't show up the way you thought they should or the way they said they would, but you still have to have grace. And I want to say this too, I think is important, Pastor C, that a person can operate like this and be passive aggressive as well. It's just not the type A person that's going off who don't have grace. You can be smiling and tender-hearted, passive-aggressive, non-confrontational, but at the same time, you won't have grace for people, but you still got them. You don't fool with them. You don't deal with them. It's like the person who just go ahead and cook the meal and cook all the Thanksgiving meal by themselves. They just didn't make a big thing about it. They didn't run everybody out the kitchen, but you still did it though. You still did it on your own by yourself, and that's a recipe for failure. So I love that, Pastor C. I love that. I think that's so good. Now let's look at then how if we go. How does this look like in practicality, in ministry, in church? Oh, thank you, Lord. I say this in life.
Okay.
I want to say this. It hit me. I'm glad this came back to me. I think it'll help us because it hit me when you were speaking is this, that when we look at grace, if we don't have grace, we can many times see it retrospectively as parents when our children are sometimes grown and gone. And now we're dealing with grandkids. What do you mean? That you realize that as a parent, if you fail to walk in grace with your children, you have some regrets in the way that you dealt with them in coming up. Not that you shouldn't have held them accountable, not that you shouldn't have standards, but it's like this. And I heard one man of God talking about this when he talked about with his children is this. It's like, I wish I would have had a more understanding ear. I would have let them express their feelings and their emotions, even though they might have been negative, even though they might have been in left field. I wish I would have a more gracious space so that they can share, so that I can gracefully help steer them in the right direction, help their mentality, instead of like, you're talking crazy. You don't know nothing. You're only 15. Many times parents didn't deal with it with grace. Not that you ignore it, not that you don't say anything, you don't go in the room, but many parents have that mentality. Man, they tore up the room when stuff wasn't right. They went to school and yanked them out of school and said, what is this I found in your room? What is this I found on the internet? And we've seen some parents, what they didn't deal with grace, put their kids on live stream and embarrass them because they were doing some stuff that was totally wrong, shouldn't have been done, but they didn't deal with it with grace. And that's how we end up battered and bruised.
It's true.
Break the relationship. It's not that you don't deal with it. Well, my son, he took the car and I was out of town. They had a crazy party. I'm seeing that my daughter's having sex and they know that they got people in my house. It's had a boy in not that you don't deal with it, but it's the grace. And I think when you don't do that, you sever relationships as a spouse and all of that. See, so I think that it's that same pattern that happens with ministry as well.
That's good. That's good, man. So what I'm hearing then, grace is firm, but fair.
Mm-hmm.
And then meaning, well, that's I hear you saying for like the parents, that mean it listens. Grace listen before passing any judgment. Mm-hmm. But sometimes as parents, we don't listen. We already judge it. We already see it. We don't show any grace. But grace listens before judging it. If we firm, but we fair. It's how I see grace. And grace is where I can be gentle, but grounded. Mm-hmm. I'm grounded in those things, right? And I want to get you grounded in it, but I'm gentle. I think all that. So in other words, I can correct without condemning. I correct you, but I ain't finna condemn you. Like that. That good leader down to me, if they really walk in grace, they end up saying, you missed it, but I still believe in you. I know we use at the end deal with that. I just had a situation with very young, with one of our young leaders. She missed that, but it was something on a personal basis that she was doing. She was frustrated, and she was saying she was trying to make me and Lady C proud of her, but she messed up in something, and she didn't make the grade she wanted. And told her, okay, you missed it. We see it, but I know you're great. You're still great. Needed to show grace, because I felt like she was putting so much pressure on herself, because she was trying to do everything she could to make us proud of her. So we were trying to let her know, we're proud of you. Us being proud of you ain't based upon your grade. Whether you get an A or C, no, we still proud of you. We're proud of you. So we were functioning in grace. Yeah, you missed that. You didn't do that right. You missed it. But I still believe in you. Still believe in you. And I think that's how grace flow. It listens. Listen before it passes judgment. It takes time to listen.
Man, I hope ministers are picking up what we're putting down, having that good balance with grace all from the beginning. The truth and tenderness is balancing truth versus tenderness. It's balancing being firm versus being fair. It's balancing being gentle and making sure people are grounded. It's balancing correcting without condemning. I think all that's when we are aware of the two extremes. I think people get out of balance when they're not aware, because some people only focus on the one extreme, the correct, the truth, to be firm. But then we have other people, they're out of balance with grace when they just so focused on being gentle, but that you wasn't making sure that your team was grounded.
Grounded. That's good.
You're so consumed about, yeah, that's right. We need love. We need love, but people have to be led and people need to be corrected. We don't want to condemn people. No, you don't want to condemn, but people still have to be corrected. So that's why I said, if you on one extreme, people gonna get beat up and battered and bruised. But if you're on the other extreme, your ministry gonna stall out and people you're gonna have backwards trending. You're not gonna have no standards. Why? Because you didn't deal with anything. You was a weak and a passive leader. And so I think we have to see where we are in our leadership and evaluate ourselves. Which one do we need to be more mindful of? See, some got to balance out on the tenderness side, some more on the truth side. And I think when we're aware of that, then we can walk without falling and getting in the ditch.
So we have to learn how to correct with compassion, because we still correct. But what that look like? I think to me, what that look like now is separating the issue from the person. And sometimes we can't do that. You have to separate the issue from the individual. This the individual. This is the issue. But still, this is the individual. So when you do that, you deal with what happened. But you don't destroy who did it. I deal with what they did, but I don't destroy them. Okay? So, biblical. Jesus. We do like Jesus. What you talking about, Pastor C? Jesus corrected Peter. Get ye behind me. He corrected Peter. But he also restored him. Peter messed up. Who he asked for when he resurrected? By Peter. He restored Peter. That's grace in motion. I call that grace in motion. That we learn how to separate the issue from the individual. We help them. We know it. We correct it. You deal with what happened, but you don't destroy who did it.
Well, I love it. And that gets us out of emotion. I like to put it this way, a framework for grace, G.R.A.C.E, grace, that it deals with growth, redemption, attitude, correction, and excellence. Growth, meaning that you give people space and time to develop. Yeah. That's grace. You're going to give them space to grow and develop. Some need more time than others. Then it's about redemption, allowing people to learn, to have failures, and to have restoration. But then it's about your attitude, meaning that your attitude and how you go about, especially when you have to correct, when you have to deal with truth, when you have to hold people accountable, when you have to be firm. It's your attitude about doing it. It's how you do it. It's not always what you do. It's an attitude of grace. And here it is. And we might deal with it a little bit further. We deal with some mistakes, Pastor C. It's not embarrassing people. See, you're being graceful by not checking them in public.
That's correct.
That's grace. Because you had a right, if you wanted to, that you really could have just checked them in public. But grace calls you to deal with it in private, not humiliating people. And we get out of balance with the quote unquote open rebuke. And so I think it's the attitude, not embarrassing or humiliating people. But then the C in grace is correction. Address the wrong with wisdom, but not with a weapon.
Oh, that's good.
I want to deal with it with wisdom, not a weapon. So it's not about punishing action, but it is fruit producing action. Not about punishment, but I'm doing this to help produce the proper fruit in you. Solid in the attitude, not trying to punish you, but this is to produce fruit in you. So now even your corrective actions become redemptive in nature, like we say with people who are in natural incarceration, that you want them to be rehabilitated. So you do things in your disciplinary actions to really redeem them, not to humiliate them, but to make them better. Then I think too, the E, it's all about excellence. See, grace is founded on excellence, meaning that you expect people to rise. Grace is never an excuse for mediocrity. So that's why we don't want to get it twisted. That's grace. That is a standard. And grace, we're going to hold you to it. So grace means you don't move on too soon from people. That's the balancing word, Pastor C. I say you don't move on too soon. Maybe we might deal with mistakes. See, some mistakes, sometimes it's a mistake that you didn't move on at all. That's misapplied grace. See, that's what I'm saying. The other side, why? You're going backwards because you kept some people in the boat too long. And that's why everything ended up wrong. If you don't ask me, just talk to Jonah about that. Jonah was on the boat and it was causing problems for everybody in the boat. The storm ceased when Jonah got off the boat. Sometimes people need to get off the boat.
Yeah, it's good.
But it's not about you getting them off the boat, but it's how you get them out and when you get them out.
There you go.
Because sometimes you can get the wrong people out because you didn't have grace, balanced properly. But then other times you left some people on there too soon because you was passive. You was a passive leader, afraid of confrontation, don't want to deal with conflict, don't want to stir the waters. You're creating the backward. You won't go anywhere. And what happens is if you're that type of passive leader, that's out of balance with being tender, that's out of balance with being so concerned, with out of balance with dealing with people's feelings, you lose good people.
Man, you cooking. Yes, sir.
Because good people will feel like this is a low standard. This is not, people are not held accountable. Why am I giving my best when others don't have to? So there's a wisdom balance in that. I like to put it this way. See, when we talk about walking that out, is because sometimes grace means you move on from people not too soon, but sometimes you got to move on. So let me try to walk this out. I look at it this way. One time is a mistake. So that's great. If you're dealing with people and you move on with people out for one mistake, that's kind of out of that's not graceful. And when you do that, I've made that mistake sometimes because you can think, well, this was so egregious that it warranted moving on. Was it, or was that just in your standard? Was that did they break your pet peeve? Was that your pet peeve? And so that's why we have to have that grace mentality, because sometimes it could be things that it's not a deal breaker. But you made it a deal breaker. Maybe you told everybody it was a deal breaker. But should that have been a deal breaker? And that's where grace come in. Sometimes grace in your policy. Twice is a problem. 3 times is a pattern. And so now when we get into patterns and you're letting patterns go on, now you're out of balance. If you're dealing with it on the problem level, you're not in balance. So I think grace gives people time to self-correct, but recognizes patterns that need intervention. So grace doesn't mean you keep everybody in every position. Sometimes grace is repositioning people so that they can succeed. That's grace. I have enough grace for you that I'm going to put you in a position so you can succeed. I'm not going to let you flounder if we're using sports and we both like football.
Right.
And you're trying to catch the ball and you're not good at catching. But you good. Maybe we need to put you at tight end so you don't have to catch as much, and your passes are different types of passes. And you are big and you can block. Or we might just put you on the line. Or you got good speed. We're going to put you at DN and use your athleticism where you don't have to use your hand to catch. So when we frame it that way, that I am operating in grace by moving you so you can succeed. And it's how I go about it. So I think that's in grace, Pastor C.
So am I hearing then that grace is needed? It's great to have grace, and you're able to value my value. You value how you can value my value with grace. If not, you do what you just described with the tight end, with catching the balls. Grace helped you to value them so I can move them, because it ain't time to move on from them. Because I see what I see what you're worth, your value. So what grace helped me to do, put you over here, just gonna catch the ball differently, like you said. I'm gonna put you over here. That's what grace do. But with the balance of it, not having grace, you say, I'm putting you off the boat. I'm getting rid of you. And like you say, now it's too quick. But you did that because you had no grace. But yet at the same time, you don't want to lower the standard. That's the other thing. I don't want to lower the standard by letting you keep getting away with dropping the ball. So I got grace keeps me from lowering the standards. But what ended up happening, I still have to correct you. Because the point for the accountability is so we can is to protect the purpose. See, accountability helps me protect the purpose that's there. If I have no accountability, I cannot fulfill what my purpose, what that ministry, the purpose of it, because you have no accountability there. So the standards drop, and what your purpose is not protected. So I must have accountability. But with accountability, I have grace.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And what happens is, I love how you put that, Pastor C, because that's part of the balancing tightrope with it, that you realize grace, that is grace, reposition them. Because sometimes we think it's either or.
Yes.
Either right. I just tolerate it or I get rid of them. So the people who are passive, they don't want conflict. They don't want fireworks. So what they'll do, they won't deal with it at all. And when they deal with it, it's like that person who's either they're at 0 or they're at 100. And so now that they're dealing with it, it's like, you don't want to make your mama mad, your daddy mad, because when they get there, they're going to really be there. And they almost feel justified in that. And I kind of, maybe in one season of my life was kind of like that, because I was dealing with people from a patient perspective.
Ran out of
just
patience.
being patient. It's like now I almost had the mentality. It's like I never ran from conflict, didn't really look for it, but I was not afraid to deal with it.
Right.
I would deal with it. But what happens is when you don't have a grace perspective, you have a patience, then you feel like now you're almost justified when you go off.
Right.
You feel almost justified when you bring down the hammer, because like You deserve this now.
Yeah, because I've been patient with you.
Yeah, and grace give you what you don't deserve.
Whew, that's good.
Because you see, what happened is, Pastor, even the people who are not just like, they feel justified in throwing the book at people because they felt like, I've been patient and I've been waited. You know, it's like that parent, old school. I've been patient and you don't got in trouble. Now you're not just disciplining them, you're abusing them because now you got an extension cord. Now you're hitting because he done ran his mouth one too many times. Now I'm gonna show him who the man. I'm gonna show her that I'm the mom. You're fighting. You're hitting them. Why? Because I've been patient, and they ran their mouth one too many times. See that, and so now you go from extreme where maybe you should have been correcting and dealing with it all along before it got to that crucial point, or when you dealt with it, you dealt with it in the right way. So what happens is grace gives you the ability to see their value. I like that, the value, their value. Because see, without grace, you don't value their value. All you see is their mistakes. They dropped the ball. Look back, see, they dropped the ball, and they dropped the ball before. They didn't keep their word. They're not accountable. So now you're done with them. Get them off my team. I don't want to fool with them. And now that's why you're flying circles. But then if you're just passive and you let things go on, you're flying circles as well. And this is how I like to put it this way. What's helped me, now we've talked about this before, where we can see some practical ways we implement it. I look at how grace is in leadership is this. It's not being bloody.
Yep.
Meaning that because see, I was come from the mindset of I don't mind dealing with conflict. I don't mind dealing with people. As we have staff, if I have to fire them, my mentality as a CEO was always like, that's why you're the CEO. That comes with the territory. It's kind of like I remember watching, you know, those, what do they call it when the NFL, when they show the beginning of the seasons, like Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks.
And when it comes to a player, the coach bring them in. And I realized that's the mentality you have to have when you have staff, you have employees. It's like you can't shy away from that. Bring them in there, look them in their eye. Don't hide behind other people and like bring your playbook and sit them down. And let them know this is it. This is in a row. So I had the mentality. I didn't mind doing that. But what happens is I didn't have a grace mentality and just share what I believe important. And then now you can make things bloody. And even though I didn't never suffer from being passive, but I could be bloody, meaning that if someone needs correction, you got to do it in a way that's not traumatic or embarrassing.
Yes.
I never really try to embarrass people, but it can make it traumatic. And best way I do this, and we've talked about this before, Pastor C, is this. If a person being, like, let's say you have a limb, it's going to kill the whole body, your arm. It's like it's going to toxic, so we got to get rid of it. If it come to a place that something has to be removed, the first place of grace is, does it have to be removed? Can we move it to another? If we remove it, can we move it to another position? That's grace. And it takes grace to pray, to think, to strategize. And I love what you said, to value their value so that you can put them in a place that they can succeed. So now when you move them, you're dealing with the aspect of where we're moving, what becomes the subject, not that you're being removed, but where you're being moved to.
That's good.
The subject become not what you're not good at and where you drop the ball and why we can't count on you. The subject of it is, this is where we need you at. And this is where you can flourish at. To do that, it takes grace because it takes time to value their value, find out where they can fit. It's not that you are being sensitive to people's feelings, but not over the mission, but because you are gracious, you do take that, you realize that they are human. You do realize that they value. And so you take time to pray and see, is there somewhere else maybe that we can put them where they can succeed? That's all a part of grace, Pastor C.
That's true.
That.
Now, I keep hearing biblically, what keep ringing in my ear is three names: Paul, Barnabas, John Mark. I think what you just got through describing, Paul came in, and Paul, the first approach, because of the one mistake, because John Mark turned around on that first missionary journey, Paul turned around on the second one, he was bloody. So he ain't going. We cut him, get him off the ship. Barnabas, which means encourager. Barnabas took him and encouraged him. But John Mark learned from that. Now, as you know, Paul come back later. And Paul now speaking grace. And Paul speaks on how John Mark, he asked about John Mark. He wants John Mark now. After Barnabas took the time to show him grace so that John Mark would be willing to go back on the field, Barnabas took him with him. Otherwise, John Mark could have ended up saying, I ain't doing this. Can't do this no more. Because Paul said, I'm not good enough. I can't do it. Barnabas said, no, I take him now. And then later, after growth, what happened? Now, Paul say, send me John Mark. Send me John Mark. And so I think the whole key down is timing. And you said something earlier. It's not just what I do, how you do it, when you do it. All of that plays a role with leading with grace. And at the same time, having the balance to know about confronting. And I think people struggle with confronting a lot of times because it has been used wrong or negatively. So people kind of struggle with that. It has been mishandled, I should say. But I think that when you confront and if it's done right, if you do it right, it's caring. I confront you because I care. It's like you saying, I love you too much to let this slip by. I love you too much. Once again, what I said earlier with the grace, I see the potential. You might not be there, but I see the potential. And I love you too much, so that's why I'm confronting you. So I'm going to still have to confront you. I'm going to confront you, but I'm doing it the right way. And that's why I think timing is important. And then the other thing, as a leader, you got to always ask yourself, what's the motive behind it? What's your motive as that leader? Why are you doing what's your true motive behind it? And then some things you have to look at and say, does it really do matter? What's your motive? Does it really matter? And then what's most important? To destroy a person or to try to keep the team together? What's most important? For you to say, since I'm the head man in charge, I'm the leader, I'm going to destroy a leader. Because I'm the leader. So you got to check your motive out. All of that plays with if you're going to give graciously as you lead. You're going to give grace. Because at the end of the day, the word of God says every morning we get new mercy. Every morning we wake up with new mercy. And God gives it. So we got to get God's perspective with how we lead people. His perspective. Not just how we see it, but how do he see it?
I love it. I love it. That's giving it grace for redemption, letting people fall forward. I love that example with Paul, John Mark, and Barnabas. And the scripture says that the contention between them was so much that Paul and Barnabas no longer walk together.
That's right.
You don't see that no more, do you?
Oh.
And who was the one that reached out when people wasn't accepting Paul?
Barnabas.
When they had to put him down in a basket, trying to kill him.
Barnabas, the encourager.
Mm-hmm. And see, but Paul, because of his standards, and later on he get this revelation of grace.
It changed.
Yeah. He was about the standard. So it's not that we don't, but there's a balance. And what happened is it became bloody.
Yes.
It caused a separation. Not that you don't deal with it. We're not saying don't deal. So we're just going to let people. No. how you do it, when you do it, and the way you do it. Sometimes we move too soon. Some things would have played themselves out. Some people would have redeemed themselves. So too soon. Sometimes it's the how you did it.
Yes.
You did it with the wrong attitude. You did it with anger. You did it from frustrated. People know when you're frustrated with them, the way you talk with them, the way you were short with them, the way you dealt with them, or you were so passive, they felt bad. You didn't even look them in the eye, so that felt some kind of way. You were so passive with it. You sent other people to deal with it. Instead of being a leader, and you sit down and talk and looking people in the eyeball. And it's bloody. That's why I said if something needs to be removed, can we put it somewhere else? But then sometimes it got to be removed. It doesn't have to be bloody. If an arm got to be removed, see, and you say it's killing the body, you don't have. You can cut it off with a hatchet.
Yeah.
You can get an axe. You can get a saw and saw it off, or you can put them in the surgery.
Yes.
Put them to sleep. Amputate it, and they wake up. The same bottom line, the arm is gone, man. But one is more traumatic, Pastor C.
Yes.
One is trauma. One, it can affect them mentally, emotionally for a lifetime, cause PTSD. Why? Because it was so dramatic. And many times that's where people get hurt in church and leadership, because leaders didn't have a grace thing and things came out bloody. The way you dealt with it, your timing, your attitude, and you didn't have a grace thing deal with it. And so that's why we have to look at it, that we want to remove it in a way that's not embarrassing, in a way that's not traumatic. That takes prayer. That's why it's all about the whole prayer, wisdom, in all of that, so that way we can deal with this. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to like you, leader. This is not about being pleased with people like everybody liking you, or leading by consensus, everybody agreeing with you.
Agreeing with you, right?
No, But it's making sure you're doing it in a way where it is less traumatic. And I think that's how we go about dealing with it with grace, is how, when, and the way we deal with it. Because sometimes some people they embarrass people.
Right, correct.
They put them on Front Street. They're short with them. I think how we see this implemented within the body, Pastor C, as well, is I think we need to model this out. Grace has to be done publicly and privately.
I agree.
How you handle people will show how they handle each other. So as the leader or a leader, and that's why we got to model with your whatever auxiliary. Well, they should have came to choir practice knowing the song. Ushers should have known we're wearing this uniform. Ministers should have known that this is our protocol for this. They know that if you're going to be late, I know it's not what, and it's not how, it's how you deal with it. Like you said, it's having that language. I believe in you. I see your potential. I care about you, and how you go about doing it. And that takes a wisdom. And if God, I pray that those that are listening, Pastor, I pray even now that there be a grace released over these leaders to deal with difficult people. I pray that there, through this podcast, whether you watch or listen, there be a enablement that move you past being patient, that move you past being passive, that push you into a balance, that you can do it and lead with a grace of God. And His grace is sufficient. And then you can handle what you thought that you couldn't handle.
That's
and
good.
now you'll fly and soar, and you won't fly in circles because of that. So I think grace have to be done publicly and privately. We have to teach on grace. We have to teach on it, and let your culture know that grace is not weakness, but it's leadership maturity. It takes a mature person to walk this out, because it takes prayer, it takes understanding, it takes emotional maturity, take you getting out of your feelings, taking you to walk in balance. And so I think when we do that, we'll be able to make sure we have grace. And I think it needs to be in our policy, that we're consistent and compassionate with the way we discipline and direction and give direction. Then we got to have grace in our process, how we restore people, how we review certain things, how we reposition people. So that's the grace in our process. When things happen, we do it gracefully. Not that we ignore it, but whenever something happens, We're going to deal with grace. And then the way we have our policy. So I think that's what has to happen. And I think we can see this happening in church. And I think this is why this conversation was so crucial, Pastor C, because we really never deal with it from a leadership perspective. What do you see in terms of mistakes or whatever that you see leaders make and when it may in terms of grace? And I realized with me, I didn't even have a mentality of dealing with grace when it comes in terms of leadership. I didn't even have that mindset. And that got me out of balance where I think I dealt with things bloody. But now my mindset, I'm going to deal with things, but the way I deal with it, the attitude I deal with it, how I deal with it from a grace. And the results have been night and day. Don't mean everybody going to like you. Don't mean everybody going to agree with you. Don't mean people may not leave from you in their season apart from you. But I've saw a massive difference in terms of things. And then sometimes because of grace, there's some things that really you it's how you go about dealing with them and the way you deal with them.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that you said that stuck out, when I look back over me and lead, I think I had that. I was doing it, like you say, more with patience. And I would run out of patience with you, and I wasn't bloody, but I was a silent killer. I killed your spirit and all. I did it through silence. I was like, it is what it is. I'm done with you. I wasn't bloody, but I killed you I was a silent. So like the gun when they would shoot it and they put a silencer on it. When it's gonna kill you, but it's just through silence. Nobody else don't hear it. Nobody else don't know it. But I'm done with you. Wow. That's how I did it. Because I went working grace because I ran out of my patience. Because I'm like, come on, man. When you gonna get it right? I kept and I run out of patience. So that was my thing. And I seen a big change when I learned how to deal with it in grace. And seriously, I recognize that people are people, so and that I needed grace.
What's the difference in how you dealt with it? I love that you dealt with it in silence. I was bloody, meaning that this is how I would say bloody would be, meaning that I wasn't afraid to let the sparks fly. What do you mean sparks fly? To bring you in a room, tell you what I feel. Because why? Because I'm not gonna hold back. If it's firing you or holding you accountable or telling what I see wrong, I had no problem sharing that and looking at you in your eyeball and dealing with stuff like, what am I hearing? What is this going on? And I felt like that was more bloody because I wasn't tender. I wasn't tender like you said. I wasn't soft-hearted. I think you can still do all of that, Pastor C, but from the right attitude. Because I did this, and I just want to share this transparent to help people. It's all from your attitude that makes the difference. Meaning that what God showed me when he delivered me from this and gave me a mindset that what I would do, not knowing it, I would put people in corners. And you know what happened if you back people in the corner? Yeah. Sometimes they're going to either they're going to surrender or they come out fighting.
Yeah.
And so I would back people in corners, and I'm thinking like, surrender. Show me you do. You know, I mean, really, if you show me humility, we'll get up out of this. But if you that just said knuck if you buck. If not, now we're gonna go around, and that wasn't God, because I realized you shouldn't have put them in a corner. You put people in a position where they had to either have fight or flight.
Yeah,
and if you get somebody that's gonna fight, now it's bloody. And then even when it was flight, you've hurt them. You've wounded them. You've broken their spirit. They've lost a level of trust in you. They didn't fight you, and they unquote humbled, and you moved on. But they got a hurt that lingers on.
Yeah.
They got a true hurt
that lingers on.
And from that day, I always say this: they take your picture off the wall. You're not in their wallet no more, and you've lost their heart. And sometimes it may take months or years.
That's right.
That tree will wither, and that fruit will most of the time die. And you can lose relationships like that. because
That's
the way
correct.
you dealt with it. So I learned from that, Pastor C. I hope that really helps somebody. That's the
Man,
bloody part. Can you help us from the silent part?
the
And what
silent part.
changes you made? So I changed now that I still deal with it, but I deal with it with a grace that if we do have to move on and part ways or whatever, we can do it with a handshake, that there's nothing I regret saying or how I did it or how I made you feel humiliated, not value. It's all in your wording and your attitude.
The part for the silence, the difference in what you was talking about, what you did, what I did is that I moved on from you. I got to the point where I wouldn't call on you. I wouldn't want to do anything because I was silently killing you. And it was like you trying to reach out. Oh, what I did, I wouldn't even deal with what you know. I don't want to talk about it no more. I'm done such and such doing what you was doing. So that's what I mean by the silent part, is that by me saying nothing.
But is that better though? Because at least you're not, don't seem like people mad. I have people mad with me,
Well, of course, no,
you know what I mean?
no.
They mad. I'm a bad person. You know what I mean? I got blood on my hand, man. I got blood on my hand. I still got, blood. People, you got blood on your hand now.
Yeah, but no, the reason why that's not better is because I was messed up eternal wise. On the inside of me, I'm still holding stuff. So now I don't allow the situation to cause me to become unforgiving. It caused me not to show any grace. So no, that's not the better thing. All I did was suppress it. And I put them in that same way. Similar to what you say about backing them up. You pushed them into the wall. But I dealt with some I felt like more deeper. I got in their soul, because that's what I was destroying. I was out to hurt your soul. I might ain't push you, but I was out to hurt your soul because you was doing everything and you had no idea. Pastor didn't like this. Pastor ain't said nothing to me. So, hey, no, I ain't said that. I'm done with you. So what I supposed to do?
Oh,
and so what? So in that way, now what I had to learn how to do down, and how with correction, of course, by the help of the Lord, had to get to the point. And once again, that's why I said it earlier. Start realizing that it's about the person. It's the person. It's the individual. It's not just the issue. That's what I had to deal with, because I was so task oriented. And I was a hard worker way. I want to show you I can do it without you. So that the frustration come, I find myself now working all the time because I'm trying to do 3 jobs. One man trying to do 3-4 jobs because I wasn't ready to delegate to you anymore. So on the inside, I'm angry with you. I'm mad with you in a sense. We cool, but deep down rooted in me, this bringing on more on me. So somebody else might get the frustration. Truth be told, Lady C, my wife might end up with the frustration because I'm coming home frustrated and tired, coming from a meeting because a leader wasn't doing the thing I wanted done, and I'm through with them, so I'm doing it. So I'm bringing all that home. So I really didn't have peace. So that's where the killing part was. So what I had to work on is, once again, these are people. They make mistakes just like you. If God take away his grace, Pernell, you in trouble. So I built it into our culture. How I built it into our culture. Number one, I start modeling the way it's supposed to be. You brought that up earlier. As a leader, you got to model that. You got to model grace. I started showing grace. Intentionally, I let people know I appreciate them. I did most celebrating of people. Recognize it's the individual. We still confront, we still deal with things that's not right, but at the same time, I celebrate. I start. I believe you have to model it, because people repeat what they see their leader demonstrate. I'm a firm believer that people, if what the leader do, a leader will begin to find themselves repeating what they see you doing. People you're leading. So to all of the leaders, what I'm saying to you, whatever they see you demonstrating, That's what they find themselves repeating. So take ownership to your mistakes. So it was some mistakes made that I had to start owning up to. Maybe because I like the good communication skills. That's why I go into silent mode. So one of the things helped me, I started communicating better. I intentionally started listening, not just trying to get my point over, but I became a better communicator. I wouldn't let other people hide behind. No, tell me how you feel. Seriously, how you feel? We might not agree, but still, I need to know how you feel. I intentionally got out of the silence mode because that would totally forgive me. I started learning to forgive quickly, all right, and then to correct privately. I always made sure I don't want to do that publicly because even publicly, people can sense it in the room because of the looks on my face. Pastor might not be saying that, but I could tell. You see how he looked? Say, I heard him before say, Pastor can give you a look. He'll give you a look. I had to work on all of that. So then if I need to correct, I'd rather do it, and I do it for the betterment of the team and that individual. I do it privately. And from that, I learned grace. And I found out what you said earlier. Grace is not weakness. Because do I feel I'm otherwise weak? No. But I do think we have a stronger ministry because that's our culture. Grace is our culture. So I expected out all the leaders because they seen the leader do it. All my other leaders that's lead now, the different auxiliaries, all those leaders, they operate in grace because they see me operating grace.
Man, I think that's phenomenal. Because when you say that silent killer, I see that can be, that's psychological warfare. Where a person in no man's land.
Yeah.
They're wondering, like, I'm put out and I don't even know. So
I played
neither one
mind
of them
games.
is good. Neither
It's
one
a
of them
mind
is good.
game.
So
it was mind games.
The passive
I was after your soul.
You ain't helped nobody too because you didn't have a big fallout or blow up. They can't take. It's kind of like in a marriage. The person who shut down realized when you grow in marriage, you realize you're no more better by shutting down than the person who blow up.
There you go.
It's like, well, they blow up. They're wrong. We acknowledge the person that blow up, go off, ghetto. We know those things are wrong because we can see them emotionally. But when you grow really in marriage, then you realize the person that shut down, you're no better than them because now all communication is stopped. You're killing it just as much. And sometimes it's even worse because some of the worst killers is a silent killer.
Yeah.
If you have a heart attack, you know to run to the hospital because your heart hurt. But if you got high blood pressure and other stuff, it kill you silently. Before you know it, it's too late.
Yeah.
So that even almost worse because it sneak up on you.
Yeah.
And it got you. And by the time you realize it, it's too late. So he can be more almost diabolical. Both of them are wrong. One of them is just violent, but they're both deadly.
Yes.
Like carbon monoxide is deadly, right? Because if there's smoke in the house and you have a fire, you smell the smoke and it can jar you to like run out the house because you start coughing and it hurt, but it know to get you out. But carbon monoxide, you just sleep through it.
Yeah.
So you don't want either one of them is wrong. I think a mistake. I think some leaders, they again, I want to emphasize we pray to close. They get out of bounds, they avoid it, or they just be abusive. And I like to say this when it comes to avoiding to help people in that avoiding part. Avoiding conflicts breeds confusion. And what you don't address in one way, you are blessing it. If you don't address it, it's like you are blessing it. And when you don't, so that means you're giving it approval. And the behavior that's not addressed and dealt with, it'll continue. So that's why you got to realize there got to be a balance to help those in that. Before we land this plane today, Pastor C, I was just thinking, why do you think leaders get in the ditch? Maybe we already dealt with it in terms of being too passive or maybe too aggressive in that. Why do you think? Because I think we're talking to leaders. I believe that most of them are probably on one extreme. Some may be more balanced. why do you think they get in that that stream? Because I've seen leaders in times past when I started shifting, or when I was even in my patient mode, exhibiting some terms of grace or grace, that I kind of feel it, not necessarily they say it, but it's almost like you're being too nice. It's like, I'm not like you, or like, that's why people don't hold the standards. Almost like they see it as like, that's just like what a pastor do. Like, you being baby. People don't need to be babied and pacified and coddled. They do term like coddling people, dealing people with kid gloves, and they don't have time to deal with people's and feelings, and people need to grow up. They look at it as more so as a like, they should come up. You shouldn't have to go through all that to tell somebody they was wrong and late. They were wrong and late. Why do you think, is it just like a mindset that, because I've seen good people struggle with that they sometimes don't see they don't see it as like, it's a balance, and that's how you bring the best out of people. What do you see? Or some that are so passive and they never deal with things. What do you see? What's the root of that?
I think the simple answer, I feel like, would be, because some people haven't been taught, and they don't realize that grace doesn't lower the standards.
Okay.
That grace doesn't lower the standards. What it does, it rises people up to meet the standard. It raises them up to meet the standards. Grace does not lower the standard, but it raises people up to meet the standards.
So let me say this. Go ahead. So it's kind of almost like then the way some people look at it with salvation. If they hear grace, they think you're telling people you can get away with anything, and it's not saying that when it's preached properly.
Exactly. That's exactly.
They almost see it like that with leadership. That if you have grace, you're just saying anything go. They think grace means anything go.
They think grace means you letting people get away. You're lowering the standards, and not stable in the team. I'm trying to keep this team stable, and not only stable, stability, but I'm trying to get them where we stay a while. We stay. We're strong enough to stay. Why? Because I'm showing grace, and now Jesus did it, and He corrected. So I think it's a lack of teaching, and of course they stay in the ditch because there's no balance. There's no balance. That I think, and you said, why they go so extreme? That's what they seen. I think when people go to extremes, it's what we see.
What about the passive then? You hit the part about the aggressive. Why do you think some people are just so passive? Personality, where they don't confront, they let everything go?
I think personality, and they don't seem, like I shared earlier, that people mishandle how they confront people. It's been mishandled. They don't seem people
like the parents now who don't discipline their kids at all.
Right, like that, because they seen it mishandled. So, other words, they seen it bloody, and they seen it. They witnessed it. So, I'd rather not have any controversy. Don't worry about it. I'd rather not. No, I ain't gonna say nothing because it was mishandled. I know the way I was. That become the attitude. I know how I got treated. I don't want to treat people like that. So that they miss kind of. Don't worry about it. Just let it go. I do it up. All of us have stuff to do. Gonna be late. But that, I think one of the keys to leaders, though, I said it earlier, is that you got to build that culture, man. It's the culture. I firmly believe in that ministry, whatever you're leading, that auxiliary, you have to set that culture. How you want it to be. So you talk about all the time, when a new coach come in, the first thing he work on, sometimes I got to change the old culture. I got to change it. How do I change it? I work towards trying to change that. And I think that's what leaders got to do. And this is kind of when I felt like the Lord gave me that G, I was looking in terms of I knew me, in that I realized I didn't have my wings until I learned how to give grace. But yet still, what I learned through it, man, is that now for this correcting, I try to a lot of it, I don't seem to have as much correcting I have to do now. as I did maybe then, because as I learned and I start walking in grace, people pick it up. You know why? Because it's the culture. So we never have to say around here that I was brought up, my former pastor, I was brought up hearing one thing all the time. Everyone, members here, we used to repeat it because he said it so much. Winners are on time. That's all he would say. Winners are on time. Winners are on time. So what happened is we became a church that did everything on time. So people know we function like that. People know we operate like that. So that's part of our culture. And the same with how we lead people is part of the culture. And so now I don't have to do as much correcting because it's our culture.
And it just thought to me, I love that. And I'll get your final thoughts. But what hit me, Pastor C, when you were speaking is, I think sometimes people have looked at, we dealt with in our last podcast, but they look at the results of people who they admire and leaders that they look up to. And they think because of the outward results that they see, they think they equate that with it being okay to have that aggressive type, mainly in that leadership. Because you really don't normally see it. Or even both, let's say if it's passive. But you normally don't see that, a lot of success in that. But if it is seeming passive, then they don't know then that there are other leaders that are holding people more accountable. You're just seeing one phase of it. If a leader don't seem like they're aggressive, you're just seeing what you're seeing. Thank you, Lord. You seeing them in public. When you see a leader that's like that, maybe what you see in public, but you don't see what happened privately.
There you go.
In the conversation. So it seemed like, oh, they're passive. They let stuff get away. No, you just don't know about it. Like we think about like a Tony Dungy. We think about, or even the coach now for Todd Bowles or something,
Yes.
The personality that seem more laid back. You might seem like they're laid back, but they still hold people accountable. They just do it in a different way, and you might not just see it publicly.
That's true.
So I think that, but when we see those leaders who are more on the extreme, over aggressive, we think they're okay because the success that they have, the results that they have. Sure. And many times we see in retrospect, there's a fallout from that. And I think that I still remember now, man, people who I believe are anointed, I believe the hand of God is on their life. I learn from them and grow from them, but I've seen some leaders just embarrass people in such a way that I felt bad for them. I mean, like to just didn't I tell you this? Haven't I done with it? And just berate people. Ministries flourish, and sometimes people can think in a way because they see other leaders get away with that, and leaders, they might feel like you keep people in order. I think that's almost like an old school welfare mentality that they would talk people in a way to keep them in line. Come almost like, like the way the pimp would pimp people, like he talked to the person in a way, that's how you keep them in order. You talk, that's how you, and that's not God. And just because sometimes people have growth and they have great things in their life, I think sometimes we can learn wrong patterns. And sometimes if you grew up in that, and you have that pattern, and it seemed to seem successful, that doesn't mean it was right. And I think that's why we have to get balance in grace. So my final thought is we realize that grace is not measured how fast we correct, how hard we correct, but that we cover and cultivate. That's what it's all about. We want to, like you said, we want to bring out the best in people. Anything that's on your heart, Pastor C, you want to close in and
one
share?
One thing I would say down for there's a statement that I remember teaching, a saying that hit me, kind of picked up from our bishop once. He said it in another way. He didn't use grace, but I think it fit here. He said before we can go up, we have to grow up. But I feel like if God give us grace, he gave you grace to grow, then I think we ought to give other people grace to go. I think we keep people from going because we don't give them grace, from growing and going because we don't give them grace. But yet God give us grace to grow, but we don't give people grace to grow. It's like, hey, you should be here now. This is it. This is where you ought to be at. Give people grace to grow, like the Lord give us grace to grow, then they can go. Go where? go to that next level that you need them at to help you lead.
I love it. And that grace to go. And I want to put this on too, so people will know it, since we wrote most of that horse on one side, that is grace when you remove people, because you're putting them in a position that they can succeed. It is grace sometimes for people to be fired and removed so that you can get to the place where you can survive and thrive. It's not grace to keep you in a place of failure, but it's how you go about doing it. It's the time you go about doing it. And doesn't mean you throw them away. Sometimes you just reposition them at another place. Don't kick them off the bus, but you put them on another seat on the bus. And it's how you do it with dignity. So it's not about that you low standards, but it's when, it's how, and the way you go about hitting those standards. And that way, I think that's grace. Holding high standards. We don't want that to be clear. See, high standards. But it's how you go about implementing those high standards. Well, my friend, this has been great. I pray that you all have eaten well. Yeah, I pray you got some wings. We're growing them wings. This is how we get leadership wings, from that caterpillar to a butterfly. In the military, we said this way, Pastor C, we call it alibi fire. Meaning that after we shut our weapons down range, that means if you got any rounds left in the chamber, they call it alibi fire. In the alibi fire, shoot them all out, because we don't want to take them out the range. So you got in the alibi fire, anything else stirring within you? Because I've enjoyed this conversation you want to share. I know we had final thought, but anything else stirring within you before we close out the podcast?
One thing, don't misinterpret grace to mean that you don't correct, or like you say, you lower the standards. You don't want to do that. Grace does not lower the standards, but what grace do, it raises people to meet the standards. So I don't lower them. I got to make sure I don't lower, and I do not avoid, because you're going to cause stuff to be dysfunctional. If you avoid controversy, if you avoid it, what I mean by avoid it, you ignore it. It's there. You don't ignore it. It's a problem we got. So what we do, we don't lower our standards. We don't do that. But what we do, we give grace. And what you shared early, we learn the why, the how, the timing, all of that in the midst of that. So that's what I will leave with.
Well, what a wonderful time. We pray that you've enjoyed this Fivefold Food podcast. Be sure you scan the QR code that you may see on the screen. If you're watching this on YouTube or any social media video platform, you'll be able to get any other ministry resources that'll be a blessing to you. You listen on iTunes or Spotify. Be sure that you do subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We look forward to our next time together. Share this podcast with another leader, ministry leader. We believe this grace is going to help you run your race at your God-ordained pace. Why? Because we're walking under God's grace.
That's good.
Look forward to our next time together. And remember, man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. See you on our next time together.